Thanks, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our monthly series on our non-QM products. This has been such a huge part of the market. We are happy to continue to help folks maximize the opportunities here. And so this week, we are covering finding borrowers others can't, qualifying with crypto assets. Hopefully, we've caught you prior to all the St. Patty Day celebrations because we want to help you find that pot of gold or at least pot of crypto. So, want to introduce some folks here. Myself, Don Chiesa. I am a VP division manager and also oversee all of our sales for non-QM. I'd also like to have Claire Kafori join us. She is our business development manager, all things non-QM. So we work closer together with her, and then also Jevin Stafiri, VP of underwriting and all things non-QM, whether it's guidelines or new rollouts. And so we welcome both of them joining me, and glad to also take questions from you guys. So if you guys don't see at the bottom a Q&A icon, click on the dot, 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 which has under more, you should see Q&A. And so between the three of us, we're going to look forward to answering all your questions. So jumping right in. We're setting the trend here at Newrez with some of our non-QM product. We became really the first major lender to formally recognize certain cryptocurrency holdings as a qualifying asset. And I think the critical piece here we want you to all walk away from this webinar is we do that without requiring liquidation. And that's such a huge thing if you're going to be dealing with clients in the crypto world, especially right now. They all believe crypto has a much higher value than the position they're holding, and they don't want to have to move in and move out of their positions. And most of our competitors require some form of liquidation where we don't. We know that there's going to be some fast followers, but again, we're the first to roll out without liquidation. And so now the question is really becoming, we no longer, if crypto is going to be in underwriting, it's how fast the rest of the industry is going to follow us, right? Fannie and Freddie's been trying to roll this out for a while, and they've pulled it back on it a couple times. And so when we announced we were going live with crypto as an asset without liquidation, one of the great tweets we saw online on X was from FA director Bill Pulte, who said, "Here we go," because he knew that we were going to have more and more people that were going to be joining in the bandwagon of treating crypto like a traditional asset. And that's really what we're doing here, is no longer just treating it as a speculative outlier, but really redefining what a qualified asset is. And so we're going to dive into how do we treat it like a normal asset with just a haircut, like you do other assets within 401k and other places. So again, not looking to loosen credit standards, just modernizing how we recognize crypto as an asset. So let's jump into where we will see some of these crypto users. And so what you see here on this chart is crypto demand. And this is one of the things that really motivated Newrez to move forward with treating crypto as a standard asset. Approximately 30% or one third of adults out there now own some type of cryptocurrency, right? That's just taken straight out of the digital currency, cryptocurrency annual consumer report. We gave you some of those links at the bottom. In addition to 30% of Americans owning crypto, 61% said they're even going to buy more crypto this year. So where are you going to find these types of clients, right? We see it, and that's why I'm showing you this map. Tech hubs, higher income areas are going to equal more crypto users. So let me at least share a little bit about this graph on the right and what it means. And so looking up and down the right-hand side, we have 20 states listed. And it's really, when you look at the entire population for the state, who has the most population that owns crypto? So they own a little or they own a lot, it doesn't matter. What's the percentage that own crypto? And so, right, we see these tech states, California, New Jersey, Washington, New York, or high net worth states, like even Alaska sitting there at number 8. But if you're going to be trying to target clients that own crypto, these are some great states if you're licensed in multiple. Then at the bottom, which is a great overlay, this looks at the average amount of value in cryptocurrency an individual owner owns. And so, right, you start overlaying these things, right? Delaware, maybe because of kind of regulation, has a lot of crypto high balances, but you have California, Nevada, New York, Washington. Again, a lot of states that are heavy tech places. They also have a high percentage of their population, but out of that population, they have a high percentage that carries crypto. So again, if you're looking for ways to target, we want to make sure that you're walking away from this webinar with where do I target clients? And then we're going to chat at the end about maybe how to target those clients. But in the interim, I'm going to turn it over to Claire a little bit to jump into our guidelines and how we treat crypto. Go ahead, Claire.
Perfect. Thanks, Dan. So next we're going to talk about what type of crypto is eligible to use. You're probably most familiar with Bitcoin, which is referred to as digital gold, which is centralized and it's designed as digital money and a store of value. Bitcoin and others are known for high price volatility, and so the price fluctuates based on market demand. And with these types of crypto, we can use 50% of the total assets valued in US dollars. Over on the right side is our stable coins. So unlike Bitcoin, stable coins are digital dollars. It's a type of crypto designed to maintain a stable value, usually pegged to something stable, which most commonly we're familiar with is the US dollar. It's used for payments, trading, storing value without volatility. So some common examples include Tether or USD coin, and it's used as a holding area while looking to buy other coins. So most similar to a mutual fund, really doesn't go up and down in value as much. Because of the stability, we can use 90% of the total for this type of crypto. Big point is, as Don mentioned earlier too, is with these, not having to liquidate is a big advantage here with our crypto.
So I think those are some big ones, Claire. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then all the EFTs that are backed by either of those are the main ones that we use, and then obviously the fiat backed ones on the back. So great
Yeah, for
information.
sure. Awesome. All right, so let's move up to the next slide where crypto can be used. So we've learned more about the types of crypto. Let's talk about where they'll be used. And we're going to dive deeper into each of these in the upcoming slides. But at a glance, on our Smart Series products, crypto can be used for down payment and closing costs. And if the adjusted value exceeds 20% of the required amount of funds, there's no proof of liquidation. It can also be used for reserves. Certain programs allow for 100% of the adjusted value as reserves without liquidation. This provides flexibility when we need to verify some reserves to qualify. And last but not least, crypto can even be used for income as asset depletion on Smart Edge and Smart Self, and as qualifying assets on our asset qualifier program. And Don's going to talk back more about this in a bit. So knowing crypto can add this much value, it's a smart idea to make sure you're adding an additional question to your application. Do you own crypto? On the screen in front of you, I'm sure one word that grabbed your attention is liquidation, since some crypto owners may not be ready to cash out. So let's go through some examples when you don't need to liquidate and when you do for down payment. So remember, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and US-based ETFs have a haircut of 50%, and then stable coins have a haircut of 90%. So these four examples that you see here in the gray box, they all have a cash to close requirement of 150,000. So with a 20% cushion, the adjusted value needs to be at least 180,000. So let's start at the bottom part of the chart with the top left example using Bitcoin. Our adjusted amount is 250,000, which is greater than the required 180. So we do not need to be liquidated, which is designated by that red X. If you look directly below that, our adjusted amount equals the required amount. So 150 and 150. So we do not have the 20% cushion. So in this case, we do need to liquidate the required amount of 150, but not the whole entire Bitcoin of 300. The two examples to the right are stable coins, which again are pegged to the dollar. So we have a higher adjusted value using 90%, and they both pass a 20% cushion test with the amounts of 270,000 on top of that and the 450 on the bottom. So we're good to proceed without proof of liquidation, noted again by the red X's. Before we move on to the next slide, we've covered a lot. So Jevin, just want to check in here and see if we have any questions, common questions that are popping up.
I would say the Q&A is quieter than ever,
Well,
which is surprising. So I'm here. Make sure if you have questions, throw them in the chat and I'll answer them right away. But it's pretty quiet so far, Claire.
okay, great news. Thank you. Moving on to the next slide. So next up, we're going to talk about disclosure requirements. This is really a step under AML, which, as a reminder, is our Anti-Money Laundering Act. This is to ensure that the money into the crypto didn't come from ineligible sources. So there is a disclosure that the client will e-sign to make sure all crypto money is from a legitimate income. We'll need to verify beginning and ending balance with a 60-day transaction history. And then on our end, once we receive the e-sign disclosure, the great news is it only takes about 5 to 10 minutes to get that risk rating back. That's required to use the crypto, which is a medium to low and low rating. And although this disclosure is not needed to get the loan into underwriting with us, you don't want to delay getting that signed and over because the longer it takes to get it signed and over to us for us to verify, then that's later, just later in the process that we're verifying that it's eligible to use. All right, now we're going to move on to what programs allow for crypto. So far we talked about the different types of eligible crypto, where they can be used in the loan and for what and what the disclosure requirements are. So now we're going to get into what of our Smart Series programs allow for crypto. What's in front of you is a quick glance. It shows you crypto can be used on all of our Smart Series programs for down payment, closing costs, and reserves. And all of them except for our Smart Vest for income, because income is cash flowing really on the property on Smart Vest. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Don to dive deeper into our different Smart Series products and how crypto can be used. Don?
Thanks, Claire. And I'm going to go over this matrix in a second, but I think one of the most popular questions I'm seeing come in the chat, and Jevin can jump in at any time, is where is really these need to be US regulated crypto exchanges or retail fintech apps, right? And they need to be utilizing the chain analysis so we can do our AML compliance. So cold storage, I've seen a couple questions, no, but we do allow for Binance.us, Bitstamp by Robinhood, Block/Cash App, Coinbase, crypto.com, but it's all within our guidelines. We also traditional retail brokerages like Schwab, E-Trade, all of them have kind of download requirements because we will need 60 days, but it's that easy. But it does need to be a chain analysis that's using the AML compliance tools for us to be able to use the asset. So jumping in here, just want to make sure everybody understands some of the great programs we can use. This is our Smart Series overview. And on the left-hand side, we have two products, our Full Doc Smart Edge and our Asset Qualifier. So what is Smart Edge, right? It's our just missed product, right? It allows for ineligible refer with caution because it has a little bit more delinquency that's allowed over traditional conventional. It also is less restrictive than jumbo, right? If you look at our DTIs, we go up to 50% and up to 55 with an exception if you have compensating factors, right? Cash out within 6 months using some of those proceeds against reserves if you need to. Also, gifts are allowed on all occupancy types and on LTVs below 80 we do allow for 100% gift. Again, the thing that you need to look at on this is at the bottom. On our asset depletion, we now allow crypto as just one of the many assets that we allow for asset depletion. So if you're trying to qualify a client, not only do we allow any assets, but specifically crypto on a primary second home, just take the eligible asset, right? The haircut that Claire chatted about, divide by 60 on a primary second home and add it to income. On an investment, divide by 240. Again, just another great way to qualify these full doc clients. And I really like this asset qualifier product because, again, it's only for primary and second homes. It's purchase and rate and term. Again, in this market, when you're trying to qualify more people for purchases, this is a great product. $2 million max loan amount, 80% LTV, Well, look, no DTI. We're really just qualifying off the total assets. As you see in the highlights, no employment, no income, no debt ratio. We're allowing, even first-time home buyers. But what you do is you take their total debt, look at the calculations that we'll have, call your AE, but take the total monthly debt, including their PITI, times 60, add a reserve requirement. And as long as they have enough assets to cover that with a minimum of 500,000 post close, they qualify for this product. It's a great program. People moving jobs that are asset rich. This is a great program. And now it allows crypto. Lastly, our final two products, Smart Self. Again, similar to the Edge product, we allow for asset depletion to be added to the income as long as it doesn't exceed 51% of the user using the bank statement program. Again, up to 90% LTVs, minimum FICOs to 640, all property types, all purpose types, cash out rate and term purchase. Again, we allow bank statements, 1099. Call your AE, understand our Smart Self. That's our bank statement program, 1099 P&L program. But know that you can add income if you're short by leveraging any asset, but especially crypto. Lastly, Smart Vest, as we showed you on the prior slide, we're really not using it on income because this is a cash flow product on the rental payments. But know that, that makes it an investment only product, but we do allow for short-term and long-term rents. We do go down to 680 on a first-time investor. Again, not first-time home buyer, first-time investor, but down to 660 on seasoned landlords. Again, your cash flow in the property. If you look under the highlights, unlike most lenders who stop at one, we will go down to a 0.5% DSCR ratio. Just realize there's a higher haircut in your LTV. We do great things. If you have a short-term rental, reach out to your AE. We will pull your Air DNA. It's a great tool so you can qualify the income up front on these. But realize down payment and closing costs, as long as you have that 20% cushion, you don't have to liquidate these or prove the liquidation of these assets when you go to closing. If you need additional assets for reserves, again, not only all these other assets, but we're now having crypto as an eligible asset for reserves. So a lot of great things here. Call your AE, dive deeper into these products because we believe they are a great tool to capture more and more clients. Let's dive into a little bit before we do that on where, Jevin, do we have a lot more questions that are starting to pop in now that we've covered some guidelines and how we use this product?
Yeah, it's starting to get moving a bit. I just to reiterate one more time, the crypto has to be held in one of the exchanges that are eligible. I've seen that asked probably three different ways, backwards and forwards, about cold storage and not. The easiest way to think of it is if it's not held in one of those exchanges that we allow, which is published in our guidelines, we aren't going to be able to use the money. If the crypto is moved from a cold wallet to one of our eligible exchanges, just think of it as a regular bank account. It would have to season there for the 60 days in order to be able to use it because we have to go back and have that 2 month history of the money. Another piece that was asked a couple different ways is talking about our liquidation, not requiring liquidation. So if you're actually going to use those crypto assets for down payment and closing costs, you would have to liquidate that money to wire it to Newrez, to wire it to closing, I should say. Okay, what you don't have to show is think of it as like a 401k or an investment account on an agency loan. We only need to see from an underwriting perspective 120% of what we need for closing, or else you don't have to show Newrez or our underwriting team the actual liquidation trail of the assets. So that's kind of the differentiator there in terms of the liquidation.
You still need the assets to close, but I think the big win here, and we see it all the time, just real world, is you're having to create the paper trail and show that it's liquidated and provide it to the underwriter. Then they've got to sign off. Once we have the 120% cushion, we're done. You just show up at closing with your assets to close and don't have to provide all that paperwork that an underwriter needs to review prior to closing. So again, that's the huge win here. And then on the reserve side and on the assets for income side, a lot of the other lenders out there are requiring you to liquidate that. I'll close a little bit with this last slide, which I think is the money slide, which is how do I find some of these clients? Again, strong target to these underserved clients in tech heavy areas. And my recommendation is reach out to real estate agents in these markets and make sure they understand that you have a product that allows not only crypto, but if for income you can use it, for reserves you can use it without having to liquidate, and then not having to run through this whole paper trail to go back to the underwriter on the cash to close. So again, we think those are huge wins, but tap into real estate agents and make sure you're chatting with those. Other sources, LinkedIn tech groups, as we shared with you, tech groups are going to be more involved in crypto. So tap into some of the tech groups, put out there if you're going to do any type of advertising, go to these types of groups to see if you get people reaching out to you. Another good referral source, there are crypto tax CPAs. Search them online, reach out to them, ask if they have clients that are looking to buy homes or needing access to real estate. There is another term that you want to search if you're on the web called a Web3 accountant. What are those? Those are people that specialize in giving advice to people that own crypto. As well as crypto savvy financial planners. You can just chat with your financial planners in your book of business and ask if they see crypto accounts. Again, check with your tax consultants. But again, if you can get to be an expert or at least tap into your AEs at Newrez, who are more than willing to help you, you can unlock more opportunities. And these are referral heavy clients because they know somebody else that's in that space. They're involved in communities, they're trading information online. You want to make sure that you're spreading your noise around out there to get more of these clients. So I'll wrap up with saying, before we say thank you, Jevin, anything we missed? Claire, anything we missed that you want to hit on?
Oh, I think you got it, Dan.
All righty. Well, again, look for us next month on our next webinar. We appreciate everybody. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.